My father gave my brother $2 million in front of 200 guests at his engagement party. Then he looked straight at me, his only daughter, and said, "If only you weren't such a creative disappointment, Avery." Some people laughed, some glanced away. I stood there, frozen, clutching a champagne glass like it was the only thing keeping me upright. But before I shattered completely, my 85-year-old grandmother took the microphone and rewrote the story they tried to erase me from. I'm Avery Monroe, I'm 33 years old, and at this exact moment I'm standing in the corner of my family's ballroom in Napa Valley, holding a crystal glass of champagne that's trembling slightly in my hand. Around me, the party unfolds like a perfectly directed movie. Golden chandeliers glimmer overhead. Laughter floats through the air like perfume. Every guest here looks like they were born inside a Vogue editorial. Smooth tuxedos, couture dresses, air-kissed greetings, and calculated charm. And in the center of it all, my younger brother, Graham, smiling that easy Monroe smile, one arm wrapped around his fiancée, the other clinking glasses with our father. Tonight is his engagement party. And I'm wallpaper. Then it happens. My father, Charles Monroe, taps his silver spoon against a champagne flute. The sound cuts clean through the room, like a warning bell dressed in crystal. "Ladies and gentlemen," he says in that booming, practiced voice, "Victoria and I would like to share a little surprise for the happy couple." The room stills, my stomach knots. Charles turns toward Graham and his soon-to-be wife, Olivia, a banker's daughter from a family with more square footage than affection. "We know how important it is to start strong," my father says, smiling wide. "So we're gifting Graham and Olivia $2 million toward their first home." Applause, cheers, a few audible gasps. And me, I can't move, I can't breathe. Then, just as I'm about to quietly melt into the corner, my father's eyes catch mine. He smiles. That thin, rehearsed smile he uses when he's about to say something sharp and pretend it's kindness. "Of course," he says, loud enough for every champagne flute to hear. "We wish all our children could receive such gifts. If only Avery weren't such a creative spirit." A few people chuckle. Some glance at me, unsure whether to laugh or look away. I feel the heat rush to my cheeks. The champagne turns sour in my mouth. He called me a failure, not directly, but close enough that the message is clear. Close enough that it'll echo in the back of every conversation I'll have for the rest of the evening. I place the glass on a nearby table, careful not to slam it. My hands are steady now, but only because I'm afraid they'll shake if I hold on too tight. I walk. Not run, not storm off, just walk, like I have somewhere better to be. Like the hallway bathroom I'm heading toward is the destination I chose, not the hiding place I need. The door clicks shut behind me, and finally, I allow the tears to come. Silent, choking sobs that make my chest ache and my reflection blur in the mirror. This isn't new. This has been my life. Always the almost, the interesting one, the one who colors outside the lines in a family obsessed with borders and blueprints. But something shifted tonight, something final, something unforgivable. And yet, before I can spiral into all the ways I've failed their definition of success, a knock comes at the door. Gentle, familiar. "Avery, darling," a soft voice calls. "It's Grandma Eleanor. May I come in?" My breath catches. The only person who's ever truly seen me, not the version they wish I was, the real me. And right then I know. This night isn't over. It's just beginning. Grandma Eleanor steps into the bathroom with the grace of someone who's spent a lifetime knowing how to soften sharp moments. Her silver hair is swept into a loose bun. Her perfume smells faintly of gardenias and old paper. And when she takes my hand, the whole room quiets, even the part of me that's breaking. She doesn't ask what happened. She knows. She always knows. We sit on the upholstered bench beside the marble vanity. I stare at the tiles. She looks at me. "You held it together longer than I would have," she says softly, her voice a warm blanket. That man has always loved the sound of his own voice more than the weight of his own daughter's heart. I let out a breath that's part laugh, part cry. "Did he really just call me a failure?" I ask, already knowing the answer. She nods. "Yes, dear. And he did it with the same smile he used to cut you down when you brought home that citywide art competition ribbon in the 8th grade. Remember that?" "I do. I remember everything." "It was a charcoal drawing, an abstract portrait I titled The Unspoken Room. I worked on it for weeks, poured my soul into it. When it won, the local paper printed a tiny photo. I framed it. My father? He looked at it once and said, 'Interesting, but what does it even mean?' Then he pivoted to ask my brother if he was still on track for varsity swim. That moment, small as it was, felt like someone yanked the sun out of the sky. Back in this moment, Grandma Eleanor squeezes my hand. "I know it's not the first time he's hurt you," she says, "but tonight was a line crossed." I nod, blinking back more tears. Why does it still sting? I whisper. Why do I still care what they think? She smiles gently. Because every child, no matter how grown, still wants their parent to say, I'm proud of you. It's not weakness, Avery. It's human. We sit in silence for a moment. Then she straightens, suddenly alert. Come, she says, standing with quiet resolve. There's something I need to show you. She leads me upstairs, away from the noise, away from the whispers and designer cologne, up to the guest wing where my old bedroom used to be. It's different now. The walls are beige, the furniture bland, all traces of me erased. But then Eleanor crosses to the closet. She pulls open the double doors, brushes aside a row of sterile linens, and reveals a dusty portfolio case. My old art folder. Forgotten, but not discarded. I rescued it the day your mother decided this room needed to look more neutral, she says. Somehow I knew you'd need this someday. My throat tightens. I open the portfolio slowly, reverently. Inside, the charcoal portrait, a watercolor of my high school best friend's backyard, a mixed media collage I made the week I turned 17, called Portrait of a Girl Who Won't Apologize. And there, at the bottom of the stack, a self-portrait, my eyes staring back, not smiling, not defiant, just searching. You always did see the world differently, Grandma whispers. You felt things deeper. You translated them into color and texture and truth. I press the corner of the drawing to my chest. This, she says, pointing to the girl in the picture, is still you, even when they try to erase her. There's a long pause. Then she says it. Avery, there's something else you need to know. She sits on the edge of the bed, folding her hands. I'm dying. The words land like a stone dropped in still water. No theatrics, no trembling voice, just truth, sharp and quiet. I freeze. It's cancer, she adds. Stage 4. The doctors gave me 3 to 6 months. I don't know what to say. She gives me a moment, then continues. I didn't come here tonight for the caviar or the fake congratulations. I came for you. Because I've made some decisions, Avery. Ones I need you to be part of. What kind of decisions? I ask. She meets my eyes, steady and clear. The kind that changes everything. The mirror above the vanity is older than I am. Gilded edges, spotless glass. It reflects exactly what you give it. No filters, no forgiveness. And in it, I see someone I don't quite recognize. The black dress I thrifted last week clings awkwardly to my frame. My hair, once my pride in college, has frizzed slightly in the valley humidity. My eyes are red-rimmed, not from makeup, but from holding back too many things for too many years. This isn't the girl who used to draw entire cities on the back of school notebooks. This isn't the teenager who once dreamed of working for the Guggenheim or opening a studio in Soho. This is the version of me they built. The sensible me, the one who gave up Parsons to study finance at UCLA, the one who interned at one of Dad's partner firms and cried silently in the bathroom stall at least once a week, the one who pretended for 3 years that Excel formulas could substitute for brush strokes. I'd love to say I had some grand epiphany one morning that I woke up and said no more. But truthfully, it was quieter than that. I just stopped being able to breathe. I remember quitting. I remember my supervisor's condescending nod, the HR lady's fake sympathy. I remember walking out into the Portland rain, no umbrella, and feeling more alive than I had in years. I rented a tiny one-bedroom in southeast Portland. Not the cute part with murals and kombucha bars. No, mine was the kind where paint chipped from the windowsills and the heat came in bursts. But it had light, soft, stubborn light from the north-facing windows that reminded me who I used to be. And slowly I started again. I painted. I taught free art workshops on Saturdays for neighborhood kids, many of whom had never touched a paintbrush. I sold 2 pieces online, then 3, then silence again, months of rejection letters, cold shoulders from galleries, but also small wins, emails from parents, one child's crayon sketch titled Miss Avery's Dream. I didn't have wealth, or security, or approval, but I had breath, I had joy. Still, when that invitation to Graham's engagement party arrived, with its thick ivory cardstock and gold embossing, I felt my chest tighten. It was never just a party. It was a reminder of who they wanted me to be and who I'd never become. Tyler, the guy I was casually seeing, told me I should go. They're still your family, he said, sipping cold brew like it was wisdom. Easy for him to say. His mother sends him soup when he gets a sore throat. Mine sends silence. But I went. And now here I am, standing in this ballroom bathroom, staring at a woman who spent her whole adult life trying to be good enough for people who decided she was a disappointment the moment she picked up a paintbrush. And yet, I hear a knock, not the soft kind this time, firm, gentle, steady. Avery, Grandma Eleanor calls again. Are you ready? I wipe beneath my eyes, smoothing out what I can. No need for perfection, just presence. I think so, I answer. When I open the door, she's already holding her purse like she's about to make history. Come with me, she says, not offering, but inviting. I have something to say, and I want you beside me when I do. I hesitate. Eleanor, I don't want to cause a scene, I whisper. She smiles, and there's mischief in her eyes, like she's 30 years old again, challenging every rule ever written. Oh, darling, she says, sometimes a little scene is exactly what a story needs. And just like that, we step back into the crowd. The ballroom is brighter now, or maybe I'm just done hiding in the shadows. Either way, I'm done being the woman in the mirror they designed. It's time to be the one I painted. The ballroom hums with money, with polished shoes, with scripted laughter and the faint clink of crystal glasses. But I don't hear any of it. Because Eleanor's arm is looped through mine, and together we are walking, not just through the house, but through memory. We pass the grand staircase, the one I used to slide down in socks before Mother banned it as unladylike. Past the sitting room no one ever sat in. Past the oil paintings of long-gone Monroes who built fortunes and lost touch with feelings. And then we reach it. The library. My favorite room in the entire house. And somehow still the only one that ever felt kind. We step inside. It smells the same. Leather, dust, a whisper of wood polish and old secrets. The shelves rise high, filled with titles I once used as an escape route. Dickens, O'Connor, Baldwin, Austen. I used to sit cross-legged in that corner over there, drawing characters from novels, inventing new endings in my head when the real ones felt too cruel. This room remembered me, even when no one else did. Take a breath, Eleanor says, lowering herself into the tufted armchair near the fireplace. This is neutral ground. I nod, but something twists in my chest. Because it shouldn't feel this foreign to return to a room that once raised me. Then I hear it, a voice I hadn't missed. Is that Avery Monroe? I turn. Aunt Dana, my father's sister, hair so tightly pinned it could double as architecture. Her husband trailing behind, 2 champagne flutes in hand. Goodness, she says, eyeing my dress. Still doing that little art hobby, are you? Melissa, my daughter, you remember. She just made partner at 31. There it is. The standard Monroe greeting, passive condescension wrapped in a faux smile. I nod politely. That's great for Melissa. Dana leans in, mock whispering. You know, if you ever get tired of, well, starving, the private school down in Marin is always looking for art teachers. Full benefits, air conditioning. Before I can reply, Eleanor clears her throat with surgical precision. Dana, dear, she says, some of us measure success in more than job titles and HVAC units. Dana chuckles awkwardly and retreats. I exhale. You didn't have to defend me, I whisper. Eleanor lifts an eyebrow. Defending implies you've done something wrong. I simply corrected the narrative. And that's when I notice it. The fireplace mantel. 3 family portraits, all taken by the same expensive photographer, staged on the same staircase. One of Graham in his Harvard cap and gown, one of my parents at their 25th wedding anniversary, and one that's missing. Mine. I used to have a small framed sketch here, a self-portrait I did when I was 16, charcoal and gold leaf, bold, unapologetic. It hung here for years, until it didn't. They put it away, I say out loud, more to myself than anyone. Of course they did, Eleanor says softly. It didn't match the aesthetic. I walk over, fingertips grazing the wood where my drawing used to sit. And then I feel it, something wedged behind a vase. I pull it free. It's my sketchbook, the old one, edges worn, pages warped from years of fingers and feelings. I thought this was gone, I whisper. I kept it, Eleanor says, her voice lower now, because I knew someday you'd need to remember who you were before they started editing you. I open to the first page, a drawing of me, age 14, holding a brush like a sword, title scrawled in smudged ink. The battle they never saw coming. A lump forms in my throat. Eleanor, why now? Why the announcement tonight? Why bring this all up here in front of them? She looks at me, and I see it, under the calm, the lace collar, the tea-stained poise, something sharper. Resolve. Because I've waited my whole life to say this, she says, her eyes fixed on me. And I won't leave this world without saying it loud enough for every last Monroe to hear. I close the sketchbook, clutch it to my chest. Somewhere deep inside, the 16-year-old girl with charcoal on her fingers starts breathing again. The ballroom is buzzing again. Waiters refill flutes with vintage champagne. A string quartet plays something so elegant it almost feels cruel. I hover near the edge of the room, near the potted orchids, out of sight, out of conversation, right where I've always existed at Monroe events. Just background. Until now. Eleanor squeezes my hand once, then releases it. She doesn't say a word, just steps forward, slow but steady, toward the small raised platform near the band. And then she climbs. At first, no one notices. She's 85, dressed in navy, soft shoes, silver hair, harmless. But then she picks up the microphone and taps it. Tap, tap. The room begins to hush. The quartet falters and stops. Conversations trail off. Heads turn. Even my father, Charles Monroe, who runs board meetings like battlefields, pauses mid-toast and stares. "Excuse me," Eleanor says, voice calm but clear, the mic picking up every syllable like scripture. "May I have just a moment?" There's something in her tone, not loud, not forceful, just undeniable. People go quiet. She stands tall, shoulders back, eyes scanning the room like a lighthouse. "As the matriarch of this family," she begins, "I've attended more Monroe celebrations than I can count. I've watched graduations, promotions, weddings, and tonight, this beautiful engagement." A polite ripple of applause. Olivia beams, a little unsure. "I've also watched how we define success," Eleanor continues. "And tonight, I think it's time we expand that definition." There's movement in the crowd, curious glances. Phones slide quietly into purses. Charles takes a step forward. "Mother, perhaps we could—" Eleanor doesn't even look at him. She raises a hand, not harshly, but with finality. "I listened earlier as my son announced a generous gift for my grandson and his future wife," she says. "And while I celebrate Graham's accomplishments and wish this new chapter every happiness—" She pauses. Her gaze finds me. I freeze. "I would be remiss," she continues, "if I did not acknowledge another kind of success, one that often goes unseen in rooms like this." I can feel it, the shift. Eyes start turning toward me. "She didn't graduate with honors from an Ivy," Eleanor says, now fully facing the guests. "She doesn't run a company. She doesn't wear tailored suits or sit on corporate boards." A few people chuckle nervously. "She creates," Eleanor says firmly. "She teaches. She brings art into neighborhoods where color is a luxury. She gives voice to children through paint and canvas and papier-mâché. And she does it without applause, without funding, without a father's blessing." Silence. You could hear a diamond earring drop. "Which is why," Eleanor says, "I'm proud to announce tonight that I've revised my estate plans." Charles visibly stiffens. "I swear I hear my mother's champagne glass pause mid-sip." Eleanor continues. "Effective immediately, the majority of my estate will be dedicated to a new philanthropic endeavor, the Eleanor Monroe Foundation for Creative Access, a nonprofit dedicated to providing art education, studio space, and scholarships for under-resourced youth." She lets it sink in. "The foundation's executive director will be my granddaughter, Avery." Gasps. Full-on gasps. Someone in the back audibly mutters, "Wait, what?" I feel like I've been punched and kissed and set on fire, all at once. "The initial funding," Eleanor adds, "will be $20 million. You could cut the air with a cake knife." Olivia's parents look stunned. My brother stares at me like he's never seen me before. My mother looks pale. My father, furious but cornered. Eleanor finishes. "Because real legacy isn't about stock portfolios or surname plaques. It's about what you build that outlives you. It's about choosing to see the ones this world prefers to overlook." She steps down and walks straight to me. The crowd parts like scripture. No one says a word. Eleanor takes my arm. "Shall we get some air, Director?" My breath catches. I don't cry. I don't faint. I don't collapse into a puddle of catharsis. I smile and walk beside her. For the first time, not behind, but beside. The study door is already open when Eleanor and I arrive. It's always been my father's kingdom. Dark walnut paneling, a desk the size of a dining table, shelves full of books he's never read, leather-bound, purchased by the yard. One wall displays a framed blueprint of the Monroe Tower, as if real legacy could be contained in concrete and glass. Charles Monroe stands behind that desk now, hands clasped like a disappointed CEO waiting to reprimand a low-performing intern. My mother, Vivian, sits stiffly on the antique settee, a half-empty flute in her hand, her diamond bracelet catching the firelight just enough to distract. Eleanor walks in with me, then gracefully lowers herself into one of the armchairs like she owns the place. "Because in some ways, she always has." Father begins, no preamble, no greeting. "What you did tonight," he says, voice controlled but simmering, "was reckless, emotional, and completely inappropriate." Eleanor raises an eyebrow. "You mean acknowledging a granddaughter you've ignored for 15 years? Yes, terribly disruptive." Vivian cuts in, her tone sugar-laced poison. "Mother, that wasn't the venue for family restructuring." "Family restructuring?" I repeat, stunned. "Is that what you think this is?" My voice surprises even me, clear, steady, unmoved. "It's not about emotions," Charles says, directing the full weight of his disapproval toward me. "It's about stability, financial coherence. You don't just reallocate $20 million like it's a charity bake sale." Eleanor leans forward slightly. It wasn't reallocated, it was redirected towards something that actually matters. He scoffs, Avery's little art club? And that's when something inside me finally snaps. No, I say, stepping forward. It's not an art club. It's a program that's helped over 100 kids access creative education. Kids who don't have private tutors or trust funds. Kids who light up when they realize they can create something beautiful, something true. Silence. Eleanor glances at me proud, but I'm not finished. You've spent my whole life trying to fit me into a mold I was never meant for, I say, turning to both of them now. And when I didn't fit, you decided I was broken, that I was a failure. Vivienne blinks, her lips purse, but she says nothing. Charles straightens. Your grandmother's gesture won't change reality, Avery. You still lack the discipline, the temperament, the... What? I interrupt. The ability to be like Graham? To smile through suffocation? To pretend I care about mergers and golf memberships and being on the cover of West Coast Wealth Weekly? The words hang in the air, louder than shouting. Then Eleanor speaks, calmly, deliberately. I've already met with my attorneys. The foundation is established, funded, irrevocable. Charles turns red. You blindsided us. No, Eleanor says, standing with quiet finality. I protected her, from you, just like I once tried to protect you from your own father. That lands hard. My father flinches, and for the first time I see something in his eyes that isn't rage. It's recognition. Of a pattern. Make no mistake, Eleanor continues, you built an empire, but you've spent decades confusing power with love. Vivienne rises, her voice low and sharp. This isn't over. I meet her gaze. For me it is. Then I turn to Eleanor. Shall we? She offers her arm. We walk out together. As the door clicks shut behind us, I realize something I've never truly felt in this house. Freedom. Not the kind written into inheritance papers, not the kind whispered behind closed doors, but the kind you earn when you finally speak your truth and stop apologizing for taking up space. 3 days after the engagement party, I stood inside an abandoned textile loft in the heart of San Francisco's Mission District. Exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows covered in dust, a cracked skylight, faint smells of machine oil and history. It was perfect. This is where it begins, Eleanor said beside me, running her fingers across a rusted pipe like she was blessing it. I turned to her, half in awe. You're sure about this? She smiled. My dear, I've never been more certain of anything in my life. The foundation had gone from whispered intention to signed paperwork in under a month. Eleanor's lawyers were relentless, her vision was clear, and I was still catching up to the fact that my name, was now printed on letterhead, business cards, and the charter of a $20 million nonprofit, the Eleanor Monroe Foundation for Creative Access. And beneath that, Executive Director Avery Monroe. There it was. The name I once thought only belonged in the footnote of someone else's story, now carved into the header of a future I didn't think I was allowed to imagine. But this wasn't just about me anymore. By our second week, we'd hired 2 art instructors, purchased supplies, started design on the classroom walls. A small but mighty army of volunteers, mostly Eleanor's former students and artist friends, showed up every day with sleeves rolled and hearts wide open. And then one afternoon, Jason walked in, still in his tailored blazer, still with that polished Monroe air. But something had softened around the edges. He stood in the doorway, hesitant. Is this a bad time? He asked. I blinked. You're here? He looked around the space. I saw the story in the Chronicle. Couldn't quite believe it until I saw your name in bold print. Eleanor, sitting nearby with a sketch pad on her lap, waved him in like she'd been expecting him all along. Jason walked over, hands in pockets. His eyes landed on a mural design we'd taped to the wall, painted by one of our 11-year-old students. It showed a cityscape growing from a single paintbrush. Is this what you've been doing? He asked softly. I nodded. It's not real estate, but it's real. He didn't respond right away. Then, I used to want to be a marine biologist. I turned to him, startled. What? In 10th grade, he continued, still staring at the mural. I used to sneak National Geographic into my econ textbooks, memorized coral species instead of merger terms. Dad caught me once and said, "Fish don't build empires, son." I swallowed hard. Why didn't you tell me? He shrugged. You were already drowning in your own version of their expectations. I didn't want to add weight. That silence between us, the one that had stretched for years, began to soften. He glanced around again. I've been rethinking a lot. Olivia and I postponed the wedding. We're figuring out what we actually want instead of what looks good in a magazine spread. I smiled. That's a start. Jason looked down, then back at me. I'd like to help, he said. With the foundation, whatever way I can. Maybe marketing, maybe fundraising, maybe just sweeping floors. My chest tightened. For once, it wasn't a transaction, it wasn't PR. It was real. Start with sweeping, I said, half teasing. Then we'll talk strategy. Eleanor beamed from across the room. Now that's what I call succession planning. Over the next few weeks, the loft transformed. The dust cleared, the light returned. We painted over the stains and honored the scars. Charlotte visited often, her background in art history making her a natural addition to the board. To my surprise, she clicked with our students instantly. No pretense, just presence. Even Graham stopped by once. He didn't say much. Just watched the kids paint for an hour and left a donation envelope on the table without a word. My parents? Silent. The only noise came through a formal email from their family attorney asking for clarity on press involvement and perception management. I didn't answer. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't need them to understand. I had my name back, and I was writing it in color. The gallery walls were finally white. Not the white of empty spaces, but the white of invitation, of beginning. 2 months had passed since Eleanor stood under these same lights, surrounded by artists and skeptics and press with sharp pens. She wore navy that night, a brooch shaped like a paintbrush, her eyes tired but defiant. And now she was gone. She passed peacefully, 1 week after the Foundation's opening gala. No headlines, no statement. Just a note on my kitchen table, written in her familiar cursive. It's yours now, love. The brush, the light, the story. Keep it messy, keep it true. E. Her funeral was small, per her wishes. No orchids, no marble, no Monroe crest. Just a wooden box, and a circle of people who knew how to sit in silence without trying to fix it. Jason spoke. Charlotte read a Neruda poem. I didn't cry at the service. But I did when I hung the portrait. It took me 2 weeks to finish. A large canvas, 36 by 48. Eleanor sits in her garden, surrounded by lavender and wild roses. Her hands folded, one eyebrow lifted like she's about to challenge you to speak your truth. But it's her eyes that hold the power. They look straight ahead, not down, not away, but into. Like she always did. I hung the piece in the main hall of the Foundation, just above the welcome bench where the students drop their backpacks. Beneath it, a brass plaque reads, "She saw us as we were, and loved us anyway, the students of room 42. Sometimes I sit in that hallway just to watch how people react. Some pause, some smile. One girl, 8 years old, missing her front teeth, stood in front of it and whispered, "She looks like someone who would keep your secrets." And I thought, yes, she was. My parents came once, unannounced. They stayed 15 minutes, spoke with no one. But as they left, my mother paused before the painting. Not long, just enough to let her hand drift near the frame without touching. She'd be proud, she said, and walked out. I didn't chase her. I didn't need to. Because this story was never about earning their approval. It was about giving myself permission. To be different, to be bold, to be the daughter who didn't fit the mold, and stopped apologizing for it. The Foundation continues to grow. We've opened satellite workshops in Oakland, partnered with schools, launched our first student exhibition next fall. And me? I paint. Without panic, without hiding, without wondering if I'm wasting time. Last week, I signed a contract for my first solo show at a gallery that once rejected me. The owner called it a necessary correction. I call it coming full circle. Before I locked up the studio tonight, I stood in front of Eleanor's portrait again. And for the first time, I said it out loud. Thank you for giving me my name back. And somehow I heard her voice echo through the empty hall, warm, amused, unwavering. You were never lost, darling, just misplaced. Sometimes the frame they try to place you in was never meant to hold you. Sometimes the person who sees your worth doesn't raise their voice, they just stand beside you. And sometimes, the legacy that changes lives doesn't come from a tower of glass, but from a brush, a whisper, a girl who refused to stay erased. Have you ever been seen when no one else was looking? I'd love to hear your story. Drop it in the comments below, and if this journey touched something in you, please like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to be reminded. Your truth deserves the light. Until next time, live bold, live honest, live like someone's finally watching and rooting for you.